Hello, 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 and welcome to a brand new episode of Three Drams. As always, I am your host, Matt Healy from potstill.com, and I want to welcome you to episode number 9, which is fantastic to be able to say. We're now including the teaser episode that we did. This is the 10th time we have sat down once a month to taste the world's newest and most interesting Irish whiskies. That is 30 whiskies. If you've never tasted whiskey before in your life, you're already a seasoned hand at this point. As always, I want to say a very big thank you to the guys at Three Drams and Irish Malts who put all of this together. As I said, I am hosting, but those guys are the Trojan workhorses behind the scenes, making sure you guys get your packs out every month. There's thousands of packs that have gone across the world. We have people joining us from Japan, Australia, Canada, as well as Ireland, and of course, continental Europe. I am seeing tons of comments coming through already, people dropping in and saying hello. Sean O'Neill back again. Fantastic to see you, Sean, saying good evening. I see some very happy people down in Skibbereen. We also have some fantastic, we've got people in lovely town Limerick coming in as well. And of course, we've got our excited David Cummings, who is joining us once again. I'm delighted to see so many people joining us already, and a huge number of people joining in through YouTube, as well as coming through the Facebook live stream as well. This evening, we have 3 really exciting whiskies, something that I think will be very interesting across the board. 3 very different whiskies as well. So I'm hoping that you have your tasting packs ready, because this is going to be one that I think we're going to have a lot of fun with. Of course, if you are posting on social media, please, as always, use the hashtag 3Drams, because that is where the guys from Irish Malt will be able to pick all of this up and be able to reblog you wherever they are. Of course, the whole point of 3Drams is to spread the love of Irish whiskey around the world. And when you're posting on social media platforms with the hashtag 3Drams, it does just that. So, guys, I think it's probably about time that we drop into our first guest. As I said, we have 3 very interesting and very delicious whiskies this evening. But as always, at 9 p.m., we will have an email sent directly to your inbox, which has tonight's promo codes for each of these whiskeys. So if you are watching this and you're a subscriber to 3 Drams, be that a monthly, half yearly, or an annual subscription, you get that email code directly into your inbox, where you'll have discount codes for each of the whiskeys we're tasting tonight, which of course is second best to tasting with the makers and shakers from each of these whiskey distilleries. But it's always nice to have the whiskey bottles drop down to you. So first up, I'm delighted to be able to welcome Mr. Cian Wyrnne from the Shed Distillery, and I am delighted to be talking about a whiskey that has long captivated people's attention, the Drumshambo single pot still whiskey. Sir, how are you?
Matt, how was things? Good evening. All right, guys.
I see a lot of people joining us from across Ireland in the comments. But where are you joining us from? A very picturesque background.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people think it's one of these backgrounds we've put on, but no, I'm here in the lovely Leitrim in the Shed Distillery in Drumshambo. So basically the home of Drumshambo single pot still Irish whiskey.
And I suppose it's late enough. Are you the only one there, or is the distillery trucking away behind you?
Oh, they're flat out at the minute now, so I best not disturb them too much. they're flat out.
To the people out there that don't know you and don't know your whiskey, why don't we give us a quick rundown of who you are and what the Shed does, and then jump straight into this whiskey for us.
Absolutely. And thanks, Irish Drams, and of course everyone here. So basically, the Shed Distillery was founded by a gentleman called PJ Rigney. And PJ Rigney has spent a wealth of time in the drinks industry. He worked a lot with Bailey's, looking after the Asian market, and he knew at some point that he wanted to set up his own distillery. And that was the birth of the Shed. Now, a lot of people wonder, why pick lovely Leitrim or Drumshambo in a matter of fact to set up a lovely distillery. Well, this is where PJ's parents would have met, and I was very sort of reminiscent of him, where he would have spent lots of childhoods and whatnot coming back to Drumshambo. Now, a little bit about Drumshambo single pot still Irish whiskey. So Drumshambo single pot still Irish whiskey is the first Irish whiskey to be distilled in Connacht in 105 years. So it was something very, very special for everyone here in Leitrim and in Connacht. I believe the last distillation in Connacht was in Nuns Island, and that was up in about 1913. They finished up there. So it was very, very, great for the community here in Leitrim. But Drumshambo single pot still Irish whiskey is a 43% whiskey. So we've capped a little bit higher to the standard 40%. And we use a mash bill of 95% malted and unmalted barley and 5% of Irish Barra oats. Now, for a single pot still Irish whiskey, I know we tend to have the guidelines of 30% malted and 30% unmalted barley. What we've done is we've incorporated a little bit more of that. And the addition of the Irish Barra oats that we get from the sunny southeast down there in County Wexford brings almost like, porridge. If you have a big bowl of porridge, like all the distillers do here in the shed, it's very, very creamy, very, very smooth. And that's exactly what it brings to the table with Drumshambo single pot still Irish whiskey. It's giving that really nice creamy roundness. And you guys, I'm sure some of you have probably already tasted already. You'll get that. Now, what we do is it's aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels and sherry Oloroso barrels. So what we've done is the char level in the Kentucky bourbon is level 3, so it's quite well seasoned. And what that does is it gives you so much like vanilla and caramel notes coming through, and you'll taste that when we get onto it. And then we finish then in sherry Oloroso casks. So what we do is we take the new make spirit that comes off our medieval copper pot stills, and we bring that and we put it both equally into our Kentucky bourbon barrels and our sherry Oloroso. So basically what happens there is we've tried to get both compounds from each barrel. So as I mentioned there, the Kentucky bourbon, you're getting this really nice sweet vanilla, this caramel notes, and the sherry Oloroso there comes from the Jerez region of southern Spain. So you're getting really nice sort of nutty, spicy, almondy notes, and it's quite distinctive, almost like your granny sherry trifle or whatnot. So it's really, really nice. And having it at 43%, we wanted it to sort of get more of that flavour coming through from the barrel. Having it that little bit cut to that little bit higher ABV, you get a lot more of those compounds from the wood and the barrel itself. Now, we've aged it for 5 years. We tasted it at about 3 years. We laid down these casks in 2014, and we tasted it after 3 years when it was legally a whiskey. So we found that it was a little bit kind of young, and it hadn't got as much from the barrel. So we gave it that little 2 years extra, and it completely changed the taste of the overall product. Very, very smooth. A lot of people think when we're looking at it.
Well, we invite everyone who is in the comments, perhaps, to, if you haven't already, I know most people don't wait, but if they have been waiting, perhaps it's time to take dram number 1, put a little bit into your glass. I always like to say keep a little bit in the bottle just so you can go through them again at the end and see what your favorites are. But perhaps join us in sipping this bottle.
Absolutely. So basically, one thing that I always want to commend is the color of it. So basically, this is a 5-year-old whiskey, and it's a really nice bright amber color. Now, this has been no distiller's caramel, nothing. It's all completely 100% from the barrel. The wood has brought that color into the whiskey, and basically, firstly, on the nose, what you're getting is this really sort of punchy vanilla notes, this really nice sort of sweetness. And then further on, then when you go on into the first initial taste, that vanilla just starts to come away like a lot more. The vanilla caramel aspects from that Kentucky bourbon cask are very, very prominent. Going on then towards, we'll say, the middle of the palate, just when you're getting to the finish, you're getting this really nice sort of spicy notes that single pot still is very, very well known for. It's very, very smooth as well. I see Gary Connolly there says it's very, very smooth. That's really a sort of a hats off to the Irish Barra oats. We're only using 5%, which is a really, really small amount. But what it brings to the table, you're getting this really, really well-rounded single pot still. For a 5-year-old whiskey as well, it almost has like a little bit more of an age statement to it if you haven't tasted young whiskies before. It's bringing this sort of really nice sort of vanilla caramel at the front. You're getting that smoothness from that Irish Barra oats. And to be quite honest, it's more like a sessionable whiskey. Very, very good introduction to Irish whiskey if people haven't really got on the Irish whiskey train at the moment. And it's great to see that, single pot still Irish whiskey is, I believe, the fastest growing subcategory of Irish whiskey in the world now at the minute. So it's great to bring it back to Connacht and have it going here at the shed.
Absolutely, and great stats that those are as well. I see a number of people are asking in the comments section what the difference between this whiskey and the inaugural release were. Now I know there weren't. As far as I understand, there weren't a huge amount of differences, but there was. The inaugural release was kind of a special whiskey unto itself. Can you give us a little idea of what?
Yeah. So with the inaugural whiskey, so that was the landmark sort of Irish whiskey for us here at the shed. That was the one that we laid back in 2014. It was the first whiskey in Connacht in 105 years. And the main difference, I suppose, between the inaugural, you'll notice the difference in it. It has the black label, Drumshambo single potstill Irish whiskey, the inaugural release. We've actually cut that to 46%. Now, the reason being why we done that was our head distiller, Brian Taft and PJ, collaborated and said, we wanted to get more sort of flavour coming through from the barrels. All them congeners, all those lovely sort of elements from the barrel come through a lot more at 46%. And it was something special. We only made 12,000 bottles of this inaugural release, and it was something of a collector's item, I suppose, that we wanted to showcase. And then what sort of brought through then to our flagship releases, what we're all tasting this evening, we've cut that back again then to 43%, which meant that it was a lot more easier to drink in social settings, in front of the fireside. This is what we really wanted to incorporate, was something that people that weren't, we wanted what we call Premier Grand Cru Irish whiskey, something that's very, very easy to relate to, something very, very easy to drink, and, it's enjoyable. And that's what we were trying to achieve with the distinguish between the two.
Absolutely. And I suppose very interestingly, the shed is championing the use of oats in the mash bill. I suppose, do they have, are there other whiskey distillates being distilled with or without oats or other grains, or are you very much spearheading the movement of oats in pot still whiskey?
Yeah, so it was something that Peter really wanted to incorporate, was the Irish barrel oats. Now, one thing that Peter is well known for is his curiosity. He's always thinking of different things. We're experimenting with lots of different casks at the minute, lots of different types of grains. So further on down the pipeline, what we're going to start bringing out is hopefully something cool and exciting. So different styles of whiskey. Who knows? I don't know personally right just yet. But for the moment, we're flying the flag for that 95% of the malted unmalted barley and that 5% Irish oats. We're flying the flag high for the oats.
Absolutely, and I think many people who are fans of Irish whiskey will commend you for that. If you were to look onto the likes of Irish malts this evening, how much would a bottle of this set you back?
Of the single pot still, so at the moment it's €59 at the moment. Drumshambo single pot still Irish whiskey.
Fantastic, 43%. And let us know in the comment sections what you're thinking of it. There's quite a few people coming through with the drinkability and the smooth aftertaste, as I see here. I'm seeing a lot of love coming in from Shneem as well, and one or two people with their full tasting notes. And I'm quite enjoying that. If you were looking around the world, though, Cian, is this readily available in different markets, or is this an Irish-only release?
Yeah, so we broke into the US and into parts of Europe at the moment. And it's, last year we got top 20 in 2020 with our first ever release. So the whiskey that we're all tasting this evening. So that was something that we're very, very stoked about here. So it was the first whiskey that we've released, and to get top 20 in 2020 with the Whiskey Advocates was amazing. Really, really happy with that. So there was lots of whiskey bottles open that night.
Absolutely, I'd say so. And I'm seeing again, a lot of people are very much enjoying it. And one thing that's great about 3 Drams is they'll let you know when they're not. But I'm seeing a lot of comments coming through. What, for people out there that don't know, what kind of size is the distillery in terms of the pots or the capacity in the?
Absolutely, yeah. So what we have at the minute, so we have medieval copper pot stills. So basically we have one wash still, we've our intermediate still, and then our final spirit still. So obviously triple distilled Irish whiskey. What we're producing at the moment, we can only make 1 cask per day, so that's about 250 litres of the Kentucky bourbon barrels that you can see behind me. So operation-wise, it's quite niche. Everything is done by hand. Everything is slow distilled by hand. The copper pots, the medieval copper pot stills are heated with steam that we get from an aqueduct here from Lough, which is adjacent to the distillery itself. And it's more so the quality factor that everything is very, very slowly processed. You know, good things take time, and what we're trying to do is as slow as possible we can make it. All the guys are trained, everything's done by hand, and to get that final product, that new make spirit, it's coming out at about 75-80%, and it's phenomenal. I've tasted that new make spirit, and you know, with the raw ingredients that we're starting off at the minute, that's what we're trying to create is that quality. So 1 cask per day is what we're doing. We have 2 other casks then for Drumshambo Gunpowder Irish Gin, and we have a column still then for Sausage Tree Pure Irish Vodka. So quite niche, but we're getting the output that we want.
Well, fantastic. And I know that you guys had you have a visitor center there as well, which is pretty spectacular, I'd say.
Yeah.
But also, one of the unique features that you can essentially park your boat at at least at the distillery, which is quite unusual to be able to say.
Yeah, 100%. So we've come up. We opened the doors the last September with our new visitor experience, and you know yourself, with everything that's been going on in the past with COVID and whatnot, it's been sort of like a yo-yo open and closing and whatnot. But we opened the doors fully to the public June 2021. So we're open now about 2 months, and to say the feedback from everyone that's coming down is absolutely phenomenal. We're offering, like, we have a walkthrough of our distillery. We're doing this self-guided, and people can come down and actually take a look at everything we do, and that's something that you know, us here at the Shed Distillery and PJ, that's something that we really, really wanted. And parking your boat, I suppose, you know, I haven't seen anyone got done on a boat for drink drive or anything like that. But you know, buy a bottle of whiskey, head down to the boat, and no problem.
Perhaps park it in the lock first.
Yeah, don't show up to the front lawn now with the boat. You can't
exactly. And I'm seeing a question in from David Cummings, who we famously always have to asterisk. Dave Cummings and David Cummings both watched the show, and there's always a Cummings off in the comments. But David wants to know, you know, is there a view to branching out into poaching at all? I would instinctually, for me, you know, Drumshambo, the Shed Distillery has, you know, the best-selling Irish gin in the world. It's got a fantastic vodka. You now have a whiskey. In my head, I would say that normally that portfolio would be pretty full for poaching. But as you said, that the curious mind of PJ Rigney, maybe there's larger parts to play.
Yeah, 100%. I think the Shed Distillery of PJ Rigney will stick to the portfolio we have. If anybody else has sheds out there, they know what to do with that, and they can make poaching if they want. We'll leave their sheds to their poaching.
Exactly. Well, I've really appreciated you taking the time to come on the show. As always, feel free to watch on as we introduce our next guests. But a very big thank you to you for introducing us to the Drumshambo single pot still whiskey. You said before, 43% ABV. You can find it on Irish malts for, did you say €59?
Yeah.
And don't forget that in your email inbox, if you are a subscriber, 9 p.m. tonight, you will have a discount code. So if you want to pick yourself up a bottle, and I know so many people do after these tastings, feel free to do so then. And you can do so now if you'd like, but you know, it's always nice to say a bit of dash. But Cian, a very big thank you to you and your fantastic whiskey.
Thank you, guys.
So I am delighted now to be able to introduce Mark Craig. Well, I suppose more importantly, Mark from Mallow whiskey. So this is a first for me. So welcome, lads. How are we doing?
Hi guys, how are you?
Well, we're doing pretty well here. The people in the comments, we've had one whiskey so far. People are getting into it, but a lot of people watching online and people will be watching back later. Last month we had the first time I had 2 guests that I was interviewing in 2 different cameras. This is the first time I'll be interviewing 2 of you in the same camera.
Absolutely, yeah. We tend to come as a bit of a pair. So Mark and I represent Mallow whiskey, Mallow gin and Old Carrickmill gins. So everything falls under that one umbrella of Old Carrickmill. So yeah, you do tend to get the two of us, although we cover the length and breadth of Ireland. We both happen to be based fairly close by to each other, so these kind of things tend to get two marks for the price of one.
Exactly. Does it get confusing at all that you're both of the same first name?
All the time. Absolutely. I don't know how people behind our backs or without me hearing reference which is which. I don't think Mark's both younger and slimmer than me, so I don't think I win in the comparisons at all. So,
well, I always used to joke that at one point Irish Distillers had 3 different ginger-haired, bearded brand ambassadors for different parts of the country for different brands, and that got confusing enough as it was. People would swear blindly they'd been in a month beforehand, and why are you coming back to talk to them now? So I'm sure the two first names being the same, I'm sure have a lot of very entertaining, I suppose, mishaps. But so what we're here to talk about this evening, guys, is the Mallow Peated Burgundy cask whiskey. So why don't you give us a little introduction as to what that is and what kind of the story behind Lóag is?
Yeah, so Lóag, as I mentioned, it comes from it is under the, we're not going to hide behind that. So far, there's someone who's already had a tasting with us quite recently. So so Mallow comes under the banner, we'll say that correctly. Currently, although there are beautiful whiskey still sitting ready from our perspective at the Old Carrickmill, they're not up and running and going full steam ahead. So what Steve from Old Carrickmill and ourselves aim to do under the banner of Lóag is do a few things that stand out from the crowd and get ourselves noticed, and leading up to the hopefully very soon first distillation in Derrylavin, County Monaghan. So Lóag actually is a colloquial Irish phrase from that part of Monaghan that refers to a blip in the middle of a field, a kind of like small, unusual hill in the middle of a large field that stands out in the middle of the field. So that's the kind of reference there, and that's what we're hoping to do with our gin and 2 whiskies at the moment, and very soon to be a few more. So
I like it. A little teaser, but not giving too much away. So, I mean, it's one of those things that when Lóag first came to the market, you know, I had one of those was 1,000 words for a field moments. I sat down with one of our distillers and we talked about the 100 different words we knew for a hill or a mound, and we didn't. He knew Lóag and I didn't have a clue. So I'm delighted that you're able to explain it there for the people that are watching along home. And I do invite everyone who has the whiskies in front of them. This is dram number 2, so if you want to fill some into your glass and nose and taste along with the 2 marks and ourselves, we're happy to suggest it as a good idea. But why don't you tell us about the whiskey itself, guys?
Yeah, so the whiskey itself, I'm the marketing guy, as you'll probably soon find out. Mark's the sales and the drinks from there on. So hence why we both come in. We kind of balance each other out, I suppose, in that, if I get too marketing-y. But very much with the whiskey, we wanted to create a high-end blend. Often that can be, and particularly perhaps maybe not with Irish whiskey. There are a lot of great blends out there that all of us, and many of us, will argue the blends are stunning, and each element has a really important purpose. With the grain whiskey, obviously adding some sweet or spice notes that really complement the malt. What we have here is something that has a very small amount of peat, which brings us back to being an Irish whiskey drinkers peated whiskey. It is quite subtle. There are a lot of a lot of references that to the nose and to the palate that eventually bring you to that peated note. But we have a lot of special notes that come from the use of red wine casks in this as well. So I think as you go through, you maybe you find the peat at different levels, or perhaps maybe some struggle to fully get there. But it's certainly both very marketing, both subtle and complex whiskey, which to me means you can hopefully drink a few of them and hopefully keep coming back to it and finding out a bit more about the whiskey as you go on. So
absolutely fantastic. And what ABV does it get bottled at?
It's bottled at 40%. So it is approachable in that way. I'm going very marketing now, so it's approachable price wise, coming in under €40, and then it's bottled at 40%, and which again probably holds back, and a lot of the peated element is triple distilled malt. So again, all of that brings that really nice and subtle, and it probably celebrates the cask a lot more with regard to the bourbon cask and of course the red wine casks that are involved in here. So it's nice juicy red fruits. There's a bit of the honey in there, and then should lightly finish with the nice peated note that hopefully starts to bring people into the category, which obviously we'll all know is massively growing right now, and people are kind of very much getting brought into that, and Irish whiskies are potentially getting peatier and peatier.
Absolutely. And I suppose, was that the thought process that went behind adding the small amount of peat, just to give it that little bit of a je ne sais quoi, or there's a lot of people that can either kind of go two different directions, a hell of a lot of peat or a small amount. I suppose, what was the kind of thought process behind that?
I think for Steve and ourselves, whenever we were sort of thinking about the whole basis behind Mallow and standing out from the crowd, it was to finish with a liquid that I suppose was going to keep your palate guessing, and there were going to be subtle nuances and different elements in there that probably from a lot of your guys' favourite whiskies, and sort of brought all into the one experience. So the thought process was very much fusing different flavour profiles and different aromas that I suppose, yeah, as Mark says, I'm the sales guy, so if it keeps you coming back for a second or a third, I'm happy. So that was kind of the process behind that.
That's very good. I know that Mallow has a wider portfolio of whiskies, and I've tried quite a few of them, and they're rightly delicious. But someone has asked in the comments, is there anything in the lines for, like, say, a cask strength version of this, or any other whiskies that you want to bring out?
So, well, Mark had kind of alluded to it there. Very, very soon, yeah, you'll see what we've been working on. We tend to play our cards close to our chest, that we're deliberating whether or not to give you a sneak peek of something here. And we probably shouldn't, but I think we're going to do it anyway. So we've spent the last couple of months, probably the guts of a year now, to be honest, looking at as we're named Mallow and the one that stands out from the crowd, how do we accentuate that and really stand out from the crowd, both in terms of the liquid, our packaging, the whole shebang, and we're about good to go with what we've been doing and working away quietly with. So yeah, we're gonna show you something. So yeah, wanna go ahead?
Yeah. So I know this is terrible teasing here, but someone obviously quite specifically asked about higher cask strength stuff. So yes, and as the range goes from 2 to 5 in the next maybe 6 weeks, yes, there are a few variations that are coming out that we'll be bottling at 46%, trying a few more. at Old Carrick Mill itself, the historical site has a link back to the Barton family who fled Ireland as part of the wine geese, and therefore that has a massive impact from a historical perspective, and then from my perspective as a nice marketing link. So with the addition of red wine casks here, we're tending to pull on that thread a good bit with regards to the use of wine casks. So we'll have a blend that uses red wine, bourbon, and sherry cask. Then we'll have a triple wooded malt, which celebrates the same thing, and eventually we'll have a pot still celebrating the trifecta, if you wish, of casks there. So I've got one of our soon to be released stunning new bottles here. So this is a 10-year-old sherry cask finish, in a lovely, beautiful decanter with some very bold Monaghan-esque. This is the horns are based on the black ram of Derry Lavin, which was a very mischievous ram, which seemingly when you weren't paying attention could knock you into the local river at a moment's notice. So it certainly is. We're at the stage where we're working on Mallow 2.0, and initially Mallow came out quite subtly, standing out from the crowd, and it feels like we're going to just about to turn that up from the marketing perspective and from the whiskey perspective, both in range, taste profile, and probably, thankfully, a lot of fans out there of higher ABV whiskies will get a few of those to enjoy as well.
We should say as well that we hadn't planned on showing that tonight, so that is a bit of an exclusive for you guys as well. So definitely keep your eyes peeled on what's coming up. I don't know whether it was the black ram being mischievous, bumping people in the river, or maybe they just had a few too many whiskies on their walk home. I don't know. But there's definitely some exciting things coming out of the distillery. So just keep your eyes peeled for it.
Fantastic. I mean, the bottle looks, from our sneak peek, it looks fantastic, and fair play to you for putting a good stamp on that. And I'm definitely a sucker for good packaging. So I can't wait to get one of those into the hands. And one thing I also really enjoy is the fact that the bottle looks like it's about half empty too. So it must be.
Well, we found out we had to
research.
We couldn't get away without showing you once we found out that there's an overlap in last Saturday's Belfast Whiskey Week tasting. So there's obviously a few people from that in the comments. So they already know it exists. So if we pretend it doesn't, they'll catch us out pretty quickly. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a good point as well. Belfast Whiskey Week, obviously now, at least according to Paul Kane, it's the largest whiskey festival in the world this year. So there's a lot going on, and I'm delighted that so many people who are at Belfast Whiskey Week are joining us here. As I said, the whole point of this is to spread the good word of Irish whiskey. And are people able to find Mallow abroad, or is it just in Ireland at the moment?
We have certain export markets. Naturally, Asia is a good market for us, and a couple of very productive discussions in terms of exports with the likes of the Netherlands, Russia, Italy, etc., sort of coming out as prominent sort of options. Obviously, we want Mallow to stretch far and wide and to be in as many hands as possible. So it's definitely something that we're turning our attention to and on the radar. Naturally, the home market here, we'll always have an eye on that as well. So we're quietly working away to try and get a few more of those export markets. Obviously, over England and stuff as well. Will be a big one for us. So we're working away at that. And interest naturally is growing day on day. So hopefully we'll be spread far and wide very soon.
Absolutely. I do love the idea of a man in St. Petersburg or Moscow picking up the bottle and pronouncing Lóag.
Probably taking maybe 15-20 minutes trying to pronounce it, but and that's what it's all about. Obviously the Irish have such a massive expat community as well, so it's a nice thought if it's maybe a taste of home or a bit of comfort to anybody sort of in far corners of the globe, if they, I don't know, maybe from in around the surrounding area and can pick up a bottle of Mallow and feel at home for a dram or two. That's something quite special,
Absolutely. And I suppose on the name, there's kind of two schools of thoughts in my head. One on a it's a unique Irish name. The Scottish have been getting away with lots of very difficult to pronounce releases from I think in my head, you've got the Carges from Lefroy, you've got the things that people push themselves out there to find out how to say and butcher on the daily. How have you found, I suppose, people picking up the name? I mean, it's nice and it's pretty phonetic, at least to my head.
Well, we have to admit we are on the second slightly more phonetic spelling of Mallow so far. So so there has been some thought into ensuring that's a little bit more phonetic. And then as you mentioned, our Scots friends have got away with that for a while, and I suppose that's on me. We'll ensure everyone can. There's video content out there where they hear our probably just slightly too northern accent for Monaghan, but we're not that far away. We're an hour up the road currently, so we'll get there, and hopefully the whiskey stands out for itself, and over time as we roll out the new bottle and new packaging, that will do that. So from my perspective, if someone can see the bottle on shelf and that stands out and they can pick it up, they can call it whatever they want.
Well, I suppose Napoga have been doing it for years, so if they can get away with it, I'm sure you lads will have no bother. We as comes with any sneak peeks or exclusives, people have lots of questions about the new whiskies. Do you have an estimated release date for any of your new range, guys?
It's I suppose it's tough to put a firm date on that. It's something that we've been working away at quite tirelessly, just to make sure that as soon as we possibly can make that available, that we will. We're all ready and all good to go, but I suppose we're probably, part of us is slightly holding out for being able to get to some of the great whiskey bars across the country. I know that hasn't been possible for a while. I know we've lots of people have done a fantastic job at the kind of online interaction and tasting, and that's really helped things. But from our background, we're used to getting into bars. We're getting it used to getting it into bartenders' hands as well, who very much help us guide the consumer, guide the local consumer and the tourist that comes along. So we're probably hopeful that things like that are a bit easier and a bit more approachable for us to get into in early September. So and we'll get on the road across the island of Ireland very soon, and soon then across Europe after that. So we're eager to get it done, and you can rest assured that it won't be too long. We're talking hopefully a matter of weeks as opposed to months and months. So hopefully very soon.
Fantastic. Keep the eyes peeled, as I say. If people are trying to find out more about you online, guys, is there a website that the people can visit?
But probably our socials are the best part. They can interact with me specifically on there. So just at Lóag Spirits. And hopefully I'll not be bombarded with that, but Instagram, Facebook, that sort of thing, and we'll interact from there. And And then as things open up, obviously I'll be able to let people know where they can get their hands on it. And as we bring the show on the road, so to speak, where they can get involved, and we can go back and do some good old-fashioned in-person tastings from there,
Yeah.
Exactly.
So again, I suppose you guys can let us know the road show is definitely something that's going to be happening with the new whiskies, and we'd love to hit up every place that we're welcomed into. So yeah, if you're out there and you want to see some Mallow in around your area, let us know and we'll add it to the list.
Exactly. It's always one of those things as well people don't think of. You can always ask the owners of your local off license whether they have something. And even if you know they don't have it, that's a good trick too, because then it'll be in their heads when you boys come through the doors.
Yeah, even better.
Find it.
They'll look back to the pile of our business cards previously stacked up there and remember, but that's the more people we get to taste the whiskey, the more people remember that, and that is a salesman's nightmare of business cards and passing things in. But like once the guys taste the whiskey and sit down with us, it's a very different story. So.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, a first look at the new bottles, and a first for us having two people on the same stream. So thank you very much for introducing your whiskey to us, guys, and feel free to hang in the back and watch on as we speak about the third whiskey.
Cheers, Matt. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Matt.
So I am delighted to be able to introduce the third and final whiskey for this evening. This is our dram number 3, Dunville's 1808 blended Irish whiskey with Stephen McGuinness joining us this evening. How are you doing, sir?
All right, Matt. How's things? You keeping well? I was laughing there because when you said about going into places where you know your product isn't, and you ask for it, and I can remember years ago that there was an American company come to a Dublin distilling, and they have a big business of outside of whiskey and distilling and brewing, and that was their strategy. Go into 100 bars in Dublin that didn't have the product, and it was like ask for it. So yeah, it was quite funny that came back on me there, but just it's a good strategy for this.
I've seen people do it in bar. They'll walk in, they're like, I'll take a whole bottle of X whiskey, and then they kind of walk away, and the bartender's like, God, I'm sorry, and they're like, I'll have a gin and tonic then, I suppose, and it's that idea. Would have made 500 quid selling them that bottle,
Yeah, knowing my luck, they would have it.
Well, Mr. McGuinness, I know we had initially billed tonight in the emails and the literature that Jarlath Watson would be joining us, but you have kindly filled his shoes, and I know many people out there will know you from the Irish whiskey industry. So great to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Dunville's 1808?
Yeah, so this, guys, is we can still say it's our new product, isn't it? Dunville's is for us, obviously. I work for Echlinville Distillery. Dunville's is one of the brands that we own, with Dunville's, O'Cumber, a Bon Pochine, and now we have Matt Darcy whiskey. So yeah, Dunville's is one of the brands that we make, and the whole plan was that when we opened the distillery, and it was about not compromising on liquid and not having to put a 3-year-old whiskey out into an Echlinville bottle if it isn't good enough. And there's one thing about our MD, Cian, it's everything has to be quality and everything has to be right, and very much with Echlinville, that's how it is. We haven't released Echlinville spirits. Some of it is coming up to 8 years old now. We haven't released any, and so somewhere down the line, hopefully we'll see in the not too distant future some Echlinville spirits coming out. But for us, it was the guys acquired the Dunville's brand in 2012, but Dunville's dates back to 1808, and it's actually quite funny because this is the first brand that has ever come out that wasn't previously a brand within the Dunville company, dating back to 1808. So John Dunville and Willie Napier formed their business of Dunville and Napier Spirits. And then in 1925, John Dunville bought Willie Napier out and then founded Dunville's & Co. So this is the very first time that the first whiskey VR, which was the 10-year-old that the guys released in 2012, which was Dunville's 10-year-old PX Sherry VR. Then obviously the 12-year-old came, and then Three Crowns came a couple of years ago. So 1808 is probably the first twist from Echlinville on Dunville's. But this was a brand for 1808 for us. Was like, I can remember meeting the guys about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and I was like, I don't live too far from where, well, it's far enough, but it's within Northern Ireland of where Dunville's is, or where Echlinville is. And Echlinville, if any of you haven't been there, it's the peninsula that comes down off on the coast of Northern Ireland, and it's probably about an hour from Belfast, but where I grew up was probably an hour and a half, so it's quicker for me to get to Dublin, where I live now, from my parents' house, than it is to get to Echlinville. But when I met the guys a few years ago, it was like, they were, and I wish Jarlath was here because I could wind them up, but they kind of put all the products out, and it was just an amazing portfolio of all of the brands of what Echlinville had at the time, and including Jawbox and some of the other brands that we have. And I was like, guys, this is great, but people like myself and yourself, Matt, you go around the world, and unfortunately, people don't want ultra premium whiskey. Most distributors are happy to take ultra premium whiskey, but our jobs are to sell volumes, and you're not going to sell volumes of something that's €100, no matter how good it is. So I was like, guys, you need a blend of Dunvilles, and I then signed a new contract and went into Suntory from Beam Suntory, and went to work with the guys for 1.5 years. And a year ago, went Echlinville. After those discussions, and 1808 was pretty much finalized then to then launch. So yeah, 1808 is our gateway into the whiskey market. It's our entry level blended whiskey. And I kind of don't like the word entry level in a way, because there's a lot of whiskey I believe is a lot lower in quality that is at the entry level. So we're kind of at the start of the premium blend in a way. So yeah, with this one, we say it's a modern blend. And the reason we call it a modern blend is that this is the first whiskey ever that we put some Echlinville pot still into. So we make it with, similar to the guys, Mallow previously, where we use some peated malt. And for us, like, I love peated whiskey, Jarlath loves peated whiskey, Graham loves peated whiskey. Everything like we would drink is either heavily sherried or peated whiskey. So I think a bit of peat in all whiskey goes well, to be honest. So and even if you have a really bad whiskey, a couple of drops of Ardbeg and Lefroy into it completely changes it. So it's maybe a way of cheating to get a better whiskey than what you actually have. So for us, we use a small percentage of peated malt. We're using grain, we're using malt, and we're using our own Echlinville pot still within this one. So, and again, I think you asked the guys a question before, or someone in the audience asked with the peat. I think there's a lot of diversity in peat. Like, you can really give it to, if you're sitting in the Palace Bar, you're sitting in Dick Max, and you want a glass of whiskey with a pint. The peat kind of really holds up, and the pint doesn't overpower it. So it kind of adds that nice character to it. And with our whiskey, with our Echlinville whiskey, our pot still is quite spicy. I'm sure you've tried some of it over the years, and for us, it's like there is that kind of big peppery spice. So it definitely comes through, even though we're only using a smaller percentage of our pot still. But for us, the kind of the peat and that spiciness of the pot still adds that diversity. What we would want if you wanted to have long drinks, you wanted cocktails, you wanted pints, or you just wanted to go into the shop and buy a bottle of whiskey just to drink at home. It's inoffensive, but it's also would appeal to the connoisseur in a way of a everyday drinking whiskey.
Well, for me, when it was released, I got myself a bottle, and stunning whiskey for me. And what's the price point if you're across the borders?
Yeah, so I'm going to pour once right now.
Yeah,
it's generally a lot larger pours when you're not on camera.
And I do also invite everyone who is at home with dram number 3. If you haven't already, and I know most of you have, but feel free to pour into the glass and enjoy with Stephen yourselves.
Yeah, so within the Europe were essentially €30. In the UK, were £30. Within America, we're like $30. So yeah, we're quite widely available with Dunvilles. 1808. Obviously, with COVID, it's not a great time. Nobody wants to take the risk and taking on new products and import new products, but it's for this one we've got it out to our good bit. So yeah, it's say 38. I think it's €38 on a Irish malt. So a nice 10% off tonight. You're getting it for under 35. So you would get standard blends in some places for 35 quid. So you're getting you're getting a good drop of it.
Exactly, a good modern blend.
Yeah, good man. Well done.
So there's questions coming through, and just on the peated malt. Do you guys have a percentage you can share what it is, or?
Yeah, to be honest, we have a recipe, but for what we do, everything is like with our blender, Graham, who's our distiller and blender. He has an incredible nose, and the whole thing is for us, we kind of stick to that 3%, but if it needs to be less, for us, it's all about consistency. We want the exact batch every single time. We want the exact flavor profile of what we had previously. And when you don't have the millions and millions of pounds spent on these labs, and you're nosing it and quality control with myself and Jarlath, sometimes they can change, but we're sticking at that kind of lower digits, 3 to 5%. Yeah. We don't want something too overpowering. We just don't want it all to be peat, because I think a lot of people, for some reason, don't like peat, or they're scared of peat, or maybe they don't. In fairness, in Ireland, we're not used to peat. Even though I worked for Connemara for many years, it was always one of those ones. It was nearly easier to sell Connemara saying it tasted like Lafroig than saying it was an Irish peated whiskey. Yeah, but yeah, it's not the peat. The peat kind of, and there's loads of people getting the peat within the comments, which is great, because the peat kind of sits in the back. It's not all that kind of rich fruitiness and the spiciness from our pot still comes through after. So the peat isn't the big thing about it. It's just that kind of adds that layer of complexity and that kind of creaminess to it, which is great.
Exactly. I see you saying it's enough peat for him. So I think it's dancing on a lot of people's palates. In a nice way, and if you were to, I suppose, looking forward into the events that are coming back or whatnot, it's obviously a changeable time, but is Dunville's going to be the kind of lead brand for the distillery? Is this what we're going to see most recognizably on the road? I know that Dunville's usually has a very nice stand whiskey live and whatnot.
Yeah, so Dunville's is a bread and butter. Dunville's is everything. I think when you have a brand that dates back to 1808 and it's actual tradition, it's not a make-believe story. It's actually a real story, and I always say to, even within the distillery, I say to guys, could you imagine if Jameson wasn't Jameson? Could you imagine if Jameson wasn't sold to Pernod Ricard? Where would Irish whiskey be? And I think with Dunville's at its time, if we're going back to the 1800s, where there's 12 million cases of Irish whiskey sold, and 2.5 million of them was from Royal Irish Distillers, was Dunville's. I mean, at the time, Dunville's was probably one of the biggest whiskies in the world. And through kind of misfortune of not financial problems, which most distilleries were affected by in the 1930s, the Dunville's family were 5 different generations of the family had owned the distillery or had run the distillery, but they had a tragic death of 2 of the younger siblings. So the business then went into kind of board of directors, and the company was liquidated, but it was still turning a profit in 1936 when it was closed. So it was one of those ones that it didn't have the hard luck story of what most Irish distilleries did at the time. So who knows if those deaths didn't happen where Dunville's actually could be, or. So yeah, for us it's and even Cian and Jarlath, they talk very proudly about where they want Dunville's to be. They said when they took the brand on, they were offered it, and 1, they couldn't believe that they were offered it, but 2, because Cian previously was in Cian and Jarlath previously were in the whiskey business as a side project away from the other businesses that the two guys work in. So they Strangford Gold and my favorite brand that we have, Facken. So they were selling those brands around the world, and they were doing quite well. But then obviously in 2012, Jim Beam bought a former company that I used to work for, and it then became that nobody could get liquid. So when Dunville's 10-year-old was released, there was no guarantee that 12-year-old was going to happen, or the 18-20 that we release now in our single casks were going to happen. So yeah, there was a big commitment for the lads then to say, right, well, let's build a distillery. So in 2013, that's when where Echlinville came from and what they're doing. So Echlinville will always be the name over the door, but no doubt for now and forever, Dunville's will always be our number one brand. It's sexy. Like, Dunville's is a great brand, and I mean it's very hard to get that, and it's more and more people know of it as years go on, which is great as well. So yeah, Dunville's is the number one priority in the distillery.
Well, fantastic to see. And before you go, I suppose one question I do want to ask is, is peat likely to be distilled in Echlinville?
Yeah, so the problem, and I'll be brutally honest, it's one of my pet hates why we haven't. So within Echlinville, yeah, like I'd say I couldn't believe it because I was assuming surely it done peat. But the story in Echlinville is all the barley is grown on Cian's fields. So we malt all our own barley. Everything that goes into an Echlinville bottle, so our pot still and our malt that will come out in over the next 18 months or 24 months. Once those are released, like, they're 100% farm distilled. Like, all the barley is grown on Cian's field, so it's malted in Brana Farms. So Cian's cousin malts all our barley. We use everything from within a couple of mile radius of where the distillery is. Jarlath's brother owns Echlinville Farm, which is Cian bought the distillery and the lands around the distillery. Jarlath's family bought the farm. So if we ever need more barley, we will use the barley or we will turn maybe kettle land into barley, and we'll start growing crops and continue that. For the peated side, we just don't have the facility to peat on site. And if we start bringing in peat from somewhere else, I think you kind of lose that. For me, I'm like, lads, you won't lose it just to get some really good peated whiskies. But yeah, the thing is, yeah, I think you lose that. I think they are right that you would lose it, but yeah.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for introducing this whiskey. And in the comments, do make sure to let us know your particular favorites for the evening. I know we have a nice thing. People drop in their numbers from favorite to least favorite, but I love seeing it because it's always different and there's never a consensus, which I think is fantastic. And as is the way of people's palates, always subjective. In approximately 1 minute time, you're going to get an email dropped straight into your inbox with 10% discount on all of the whiskeys you've tasted tonight. So make sure to use that discount code and get these delivered straight to your door by the folks at Irish Malts and 3 Drams. Stephen McGuinness from Dunville's and Echlinville Distillery, you've been an absolute superstar. Thank you so much for everything.
Cheers. Thanks, man.
I hope everyone's enjoyed tasting your fine whiskies.